You think you've seen pretty much everything in the news, and then, bam, this recent military clash between India and Pakistan happens. And what really jumped out were these initial reports suggesting Pakistan, well, they might have had some surprising success in the air.
Right, using Chinese kit, apparently.
Exactly. Chinese fighter jets, Chinese missiles, supposedly against Western-made aircraft. Now, the details are still, murky.
Very murky. It always is initially.
But it's definitely got people talking internationally. A lot of chatter.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to dig into in this deep dive. We're focusing on these reports, mainly drawing on analysis from The Economist about Pakistan's claimed use of Chinese weapons in this recent fight.
Yeah.
Our mission really is to unpack these claims, give some context on the weapon systems people are talking about, and try to figure out why this news, even if only partly accurate, might be, well, a pretty big deal for military power in the region.
And maybe globally, too.
Potentially, yes. Broader global security implications, for sure.
Okay, let's unpack it then. So this all apparently went down over, 4 days, starting around May 7th, 2025.
That's the reported time frame, yes. A 4-day military showdown.
Can you maybe paint a clearer picture of what actually happened?
Well, from the reports, it was this period of intense military activity, but the really attention-grabbing part is what Pakistan is saying about the air battles.
Right. What are they claiming?
They're claiming their J-10C fighters. These are Chinese jets using PL-15 air-to-air missiles shot down 5 Indian fighters.
5. Did they say which types?
They did. They specified 3 French Rafales.
The Rafales. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, considered very modern, capable jets. And 2 older Russian models, though they didn't name the exact type.
And they also said something about the scale, didn't they?
They did. Pakistan's Air Force is claiming 114 aircraft were involved in total, and crucially, that the combat happened entirely beyond visual range.
Beyond visual range. Okay, for those of us not up on military jargon, what does BVR actually mean in practice?
Right, good question. BVR, beyond visual range. It means the pilots are engaging targets they can't physically see yet. They're using radar, locking on, and firing long-range missiles.
So it's all about the tech. Who has the better radar, the longer-reaching missile?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Advanced radar systems, missile range, guidance accuracy, those become absolutely critical factors. Much less about close-in dogfighting, more about systems versus systems.
That sounds like a very different kind of air war.
Yeah.
So India's response, how have they reacted to these pretty dramatic claims?
India's been quite guarded, actually. They haven't directly confirmed or denied the specific losses Pakistan claims.
Interesting.
Their official line is more focused on reassuring everyone that all their pilots are safe. They have claimed they shot down some high-tech Pakistani planes.
Okay. Tit for tat.
Sort of, but Pakistan denies that, saying they only had minor damage on 1 aircraft. So conflicting stories, as you'd expect.
Standard fog of war stuff. But with India being cagey, are there any other sources? Independent reports, maybe?
Yeah. The Economist mentions that some independent reports do suggest Indian jets did crash during that time.
Including a Rafale.
Including, apparently, at least 1 Rafale, yes. Now, you always have to be careful with independent reports during conflicts. Sources can be biased.
They're sure. Grain of salt.
Exactly. But the fact these reports exist adds another layer, another piece to the puzzle we're trying to assemble.
Right. Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating for me. Pakistan using Chinese weapons. That's not new, is it?
Not at all. China's been supplying Pakistan for decades. They're their biggest supplier now.
So what's the big deal this time?
The big deal is the type of equipment. This is reportedly the first time China's modern fighters, like the J-10C, have been used in combat against jets considered, well, equivalent to top Western models, like the Rafale.
So it's a first test in live fire against that level of opposition.
Precisely. Before this, these Chinese jets hadn't really faced that kind of adversary. And the general thinking, maybe assumption, was that Western aircraft like the Rafale still held a clear technological edge.
And the Rafale specifically. That's a major platform for India, isn't it? A big investment.
Huge investment. It's seen as a cornerstone of their Air Force modernization. Highly capable, multi-role.
So if one was shot down?
If it's confirmed, it would be the first ever combat loss for a Rafale. That's significant. It would definitely raise questions, make people reassess its capabilities, its vulnerabilities in a real fight.
Okay, let's get into the hardware then. The nuts and bolts. What are these specific planes and missiles we're talking about?
Okay, so Pakistan's side. The J-10C fighter. They've got about 20 of them, acquired since 2022. It's generally seen as a modern, capable, multi-role jet.
Comparable to, say, an F-16 or something.
In some ways, yes, often compared to later block F-16s or similar 4th Gen Plus fighters, and the missile they supposedly used is the PL-15.
The PL-15, what's special about that?
Its range. It's known, or at least reported, to have a very long range, potentially outranging some current Western air-to-air missiles. And advanced guidance. That's a key part of the BVR equation.
Got it. And on the Indian side?
The Rafales, obviously. They have 62. Plus, as mentioned, older Russian fighters, though the report didn't specify which models.
And didn't you mention another Pakistani jet? The JF-17?
Ah, yes, good point. Pakistan also operates about 150 JF-17 Thunderjets. They've been adding those since 2007. And it's mostly a co-production with China.
Is that as advanced as the J-10C or Rafale?
Generally, no. The JF-17 is considered more of a lighter, sort of lower-cost multi-role fighter.
Right.
Capable for its role, definitely a workhorse for Pakistan, but not usually put in the same top tier as the J-10C or Rafale.
And China itself doesn't use the JF-17.
That's right. The Economist notes that while China helped develop and exports the JF-17, their own Air Force, the PLAAF, doesn't operate it. They use the J-10C and more advanced stuff like the J-20.
Interesting. Okay, so with Chinese tech allegedly playing such a key role, what has Beijing said officially?
Well, initially, the Chinese government sort of pleaded ignorance, claimed they weren't familiar with the specifics. Standard diplomatic deflection, maybe. But then, on May 12th, there was this report in China Space News, which, importantly, is a state-run defense industry paper.
Okay, state-run. And what did it say? Did it confirm their gear was used?
Not directly, no. This is where it gets a bit nuanced. The report described a system, an integrated air defense concept.
How did it describe it?
It talked about air defenses locking onto targets, and then fighters, maybe quite far away, launching missiles guided by other aircraft or systems, like a networked approach.
Like passing targeting data around.
Exactly. And this is the key thing, the report didn't explicitly say, yes, our J-10Cs and PL-15s did this in the India-Pakistan clash. It described a capability that China presumably possesses or is developing.
Ah, I see. So suggestive, but not confirmed. But Pakistan does have other Chinese gear that could fit into that picture.
They do. They have Chinese air defense systems on the ground, although India claims they managed to jam those.
Right.
And Pakistan also operates Chinese-made airborne early warning and control aircraft, AEW&C planes, basically flying radar stations.
Could those guide missiles from distant fighters?
Theoretically, yes. Those AEW&C aircraft could potentially provide the targeting data for the kind of networked attack described in that China Space News report. But again, no report we've seen explicitly draws that direct line for this specific incident. It's connecting the dots.
Okay, so let's assume for a moment that Pakistan's claims are, let's say, at least partially true. What are the wider implications, especially for India, given their big Rafale purchase?
Well, The Economist uses the phrase grave implications for India, and you can see why.
Yeah.
They've bet heavily on modern Western tech like the Rafale. They were apparently thinking about buying even more. If these aircraft are suddenly seen as potentially vulnerable to advanced Chinese systems, well, that forces a major rethink.
Rethink their whole strategy.
Possibly their procurement strategy, their doctrine, yeah. Maybe they need different countermeasures, more electronic warfare focus, maybe even look at different planes or missiles down the line. It shakes things up.
And it's not just India paying attention, right? You mentioned global implications.
Definitely not just India. The U.S. and its allies are watching this very closely, too.
Why the concern for them?
Because China does operate the J-10C itself. Lots of them. Including, in sensitive areas like around Taiwan.
Ah, so if the J-10C proved effective against a top Western jet flown by Pakistan?
It raises serious questions about how it might perform in a potential conflict involving the U.S. or its allies in the Pacific. It challenges assumptions about air superiority. Rings some alarm bells in planning circles, you could say.
That makes sense. And has this affected anything else, like arms sales maybe?
It seems so. The Economist notes that while only Pakistan has bought the J-10C so far, other countries might suddenly be more interested now if they see it as a combat-proven system that can potentially hold its own against Western equivalents.
Really? Actual market impact?
Apparently. The article mentioned that the stock price for the J-10C's manufacturer actually jumped after these reports came out. Suggests the market thinks future sales might increase.
Wow. Battlefield news hitting the stock market? But okay, let's be clear. Even if Pakistan's claims are 100% true, Does that automatically mean the J-10C is better than the Rafale overall?
No, not necessarily, and that's a really critical point to understand. One specific set of engagements, if they happened as claimed, doesn't prove overall superiority.
Why not?
Because these Western jets, like the Rafale, are designed for a very broad range of missions: ground attack, electronic warfare, reconnaissance, not just air-to-air combat. The J-10C is multi-role too, but the Rafale is often seen as having a wider, perhaps deeper set of capabilities.
And the circumstances matter too, right? Like that network system you mentioned.
Exactly. Were there supporting assets involved, ground radar, those AEW and seaplanes? What were the rules of engagement? Pilot training and experience is always a huge factor too. It's never just plane versus plane in isolation.
So it's way more complicated than a simple scoreboard.
Absolutely. Many factors determine outcomes in real combat. But the perception is powerful. The idea that advanced Chinese weapons could successfully challenge advanced Western ones, that perception alone is enough to make military planners worldwide sit up and take notice.
It sounds like analysts everywhere are going to be working overtime trying to figure this out.
Oh, for sure. The Economist piece suggests military officials are scrambling for more details. And yeah, some are likely already looking at their war plans, thinking about potential adjustments based on this.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this deep dive up. What's the main thing we should take away from all this?
I think the key takeaway is that Pakistan's claims, whether fully accurate or not, about using advanced Chinese weapons successfully against Western-made jets have really stirred the pot. It sparked serious debate and analysis in military circles globally.
It's forced people to confront the capabilities of China's modern military tech.
Exactly. It brings that issue right to the forefront. How capable is it? How does it stack up? What does that mean for the regional and maybe global balance of power?
And we still need to remember there's a lot of uncertainty here. Fog of war, conflicting reports.
Crucially important to remember that, yes, we don't have the full verified picture yet. But even these initial reports, these claims, they suggest a potential shift in how we understand military technology competition. They challenge maybe some long-held assumptions about Western dominance in the air.
So, thinking about all this, the tech, the arms sales, the geopolitics, what's the final question we should leave our listeners mulling over?
I think the big question for you to consider is this. If events like these, even just the reports of them, signal a real shift in the effectiveness of different nations' military technologies, what are the long-term consequences? What does this mean for global power dynamics, for how countries plan their defense, for future military strategies? It's definitely something worth keeping an eye on in defense and security news going forward.